So, Stacey, what I
Yeah,
thought would be good if you could just start off by telling everyone who you are and what it is you do.
yeah, sure. Okay, so my name's Stacey Turner, and I'm from St Albans, and I am the founding CEO of mental health charity. It's okay to say. Our headquarters are local in St Albans, but we actually have a nationwide approach, which is amazing. And there's quite a backstory as to how we sort of became what led up to it, and it's community led as well, which is lovely. Um, my background is in psychology, and I'm also an anxiety expert. And I've been a media contributor for quite some time. So often, if there's an article, specific to a mental health related topic, or you know, it can be anything to do with health and well-being, healthcare. Um, we've built a board of professionals at It's Okay to say that there's really no information we can't get our hands on. So that's something I've been doing for quite some time as well.
Great. And so, what exactly does It's Okay to Say do?
So we offer, so we are a mental health care and well-being charity. And we say that instead of just saying mental health, because it just explains a little bit more. Um, it's okay to say came about to provide essential mental health care and well-being support for people of all ages. We offer face-to-face and online support. We have a fantastic nationwide network of professionals. So if someone is happy to have online support, and we have a specialist based in Edinburgh, for
Hmm.
example, then we know that we can connect those two. And we offer fully funded support, part funded, and paid for. And we also have a buddy service where those who have, been grateful for the support can um, sort of adopt sessions for other people, knowing that they're helping others as well, which
Right.
is quite lovely. But we also offer workshops. We have a great meeting room, and we run support groups. We run a drop in session for young people. Once to twice a week as well. And that's anonymous and they don't need to register.
Great.
So they can just turn up and have a cheese toasty, have a chat. It's done in a very chilled, informal way. The information's there. There's always a professional on hand just in case they want to chat. Um, and actually, we are about to open a similar thing up for people of all ages once a week, but during the day,
Right.
because we find that just people just love coming in, having a cuppa, and just chatting, just general chit chat,
Yeah.
really. And that's where they find out more about our services, and also knowing what other services there are that we're linked to that can potentially help them as well.
Amazing. And obviously, you must talk to a whole wide range of people who come in to see you. I was wondering if there were any very common issues that people come to you with.
Yeah, I mean, I think the top three has to be depression, anxiety, and loneliness.
Mm,
And actually, the three of them can be identified separately, but they're also very much interlinked.
sure. Yeah.
So they're a bit like mates. They usually tag along together, I'm
Bad mates.
afraid. Yeah. Well, and the degree it varies between each person is very different. Um, and so the main thing we're seeing is that people are recognizing what it is, and with consistent messages that we're trying to put out there through the press,
Hmm.
and any way that we can, really, people know that it's okay to just come and chat and know that it's actually normal and it's a part of being a human. It's just we're talking about it now.
Yeah.
So
So that's interesting. So
yeah.
a lot of people would probably feel anxious or depressed or lonely, as you say,
Yeah.
and think is a horrible feeling that I need to avoid. But it seems like you're saying it's not necessarily that straightforward, and it's something that you kind of everyone kind of goes through. I guess is the thing.
Absolutely. And it's just very normal. I mean, what is normal at the end of the day? But it is normal. And I'm going to underline that, bold it, put it in
Yeah.
capitals with exclamation marks. Um, because, we're all so good at putting so much pressure on ourselves the moment we sort of starting to feel anxious. Sometimes our judgment can be clouded because we're in the thick of it, we're in the throw of it. So your perspective or your clarity on things isn't as clear as
Sure.
it maybe might be in other times. So that's why it's good talking to someone so that you can just get it out into the open with someone who is um, lovely to talk to. They're nothing to do with you and your life, so they're non-judgmental, they're non-biased. They're, they can offer you a fresh perspective and just offer those reminders that, first of all, it is okay, and here are some suggestions about what we can do when these feelings arise,
Mm,
to help manage them.
mm. So, what kinds of things can people actually do to help manage anxiety then?
I think the biggest thing is talking.
Hmm.
Talking is the most underrated form of therapy ever. We all know that there's no magic pill,
Sure.
and we all know these days that everyone has information at the tips of their fingers, and we're all so much more well informed on things.
Mm,
And so we encourage people to um, talk, understand themselves. The more they understand themselves, the more they'll feel better. And it's an interesting thing to watch someone realize that. It's lovely, but it's very interesting because you sort of get to understand that person. Their Maybe you've had the opportunity where they've felt comfortable opening up about their past with you.
hmm.
Maybe they're talking about all the stresses that they're going on, all that plate juggling,
Mm,
um, and how life can be incredibly tough.
yeah.
Um, and so with all these things in the present, then we pull things from the past, and then we try and understand what someone is worrying about potentially in the future. Then we can sort of pull it all together and create sort of that lovely understanding and reassurance, but also we can create sort of a comprehensive range of support for someone.
Mm,
And as I said before, the most important thing is talking, but there's so many other things that can be done, such as, lots of resources out there, whether it's podcasts or, we are always putting together books, leaflets of information.
mm,
And we try not to just give someone a leaflet. And what we try and do is put bespoke, bits of information together for people. But these contain resources to go away and further research things themselves so that they can understand that they're not on their own. They are just a human being, and this is just part of everyday life. Breathing exercises are a huge one. A lot of people shallow breathe,
right.
and we try and teach people how to take long, deep breaths.
Right.
And it's quite a relief. People don't often realize that they're shallow breathing.
Yes. Yeah. I think I probably do that, to be honest. So what? How should you breathe then? What's the advice there? What is like just a deeper breath, a slower breath? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, so we like to work on anchoring and sort of focusing on the here and the now.
Mm.
So I guess it might be bringing in a bit of, mindfulness and a bit of meditation here. And these things can literally take 10 seconds to do. It doesn't need to be complicated, it can be very simple. But for someone who is experiencing any form of anxiety or thinking that they might be going into a panic attack,
Mm.
or just feeling wobbly, even just the slightest physical response to how they're feeling, or perhaps they've walked in and they don't like how the environment is making them feel. Perhaps there's too many people. Perhaps, they're just, it's just not working for them. Um, the best thing anyone can do is just take a moment to anchor themselves and just focus on their breath in that moment before making a decision as to what to do next.
Mm.
And that breath is, because you'll find it's sort of that short and shallow breathing. And
Yeah.
then that gets worse if it's not controlled. And that's what then leads into anxiety and panic attacks. And that's where it spirals.
Right.
Whereas controlling your breathing is about mind and breath together.
Mm.
So the mind is going to go, okay, you're going to deep breath now. And that can be, it works differently for everyone. And we've got so many different ways of breath work. It's quite unbelievable. It really is a whole
It's
a
amazing.
whole topic in itself.
You think it would
Um,
be simple to know how to
yeah,
breathe, but I guess.
yeah, but we take it for granted. We go
Mm.
about our daily lives. We know we breathe. We have to breathe to exist.
Yeah.
But what people forget is that we need to still use that breath to so that we're in control, so
Mm.
that we can better face things and make, decisions. Um, and even if it's, I'm going to take a deep breath in to a slow count of 3, and then I'm going to blow it out nice, long, and slow to a count of 3. And I'm going to do that 4 times. Even that in itself makes a huge difference.
Mm. I could imagine because you're taking control of a situation that was threatening to spiral
Yeah,
out of your control, I suppose.
exactly. You're calming the nervous system in the body. That then in return is affecting all the other systems in your body. And again, it stops things spiraling, as we
Mm.
say. But it also just helps that person, most importantly, grab autonomy over themselves, and over the situation. And even if then someone still has to sort of say, actually, excuse me for a moment, I just need to go to the bathroom, or, um, you know, I'm going to go get myself a glass of water, wherever you are. No one can keep you where you are.
Sure.
So you are always welcome to sort of get up and leave and, you know, excuse yourself from anything without offering an explanation.
Mm.
So talking, um, educating oneself so that they can understand better, breathing, so bringing in mindfulness and a bit of meditation, and exercise is a huge one.
Yeah.
I have so many people say to me, but what if I have to factor in I'm limited to what exercise I can do?
Mm.
There's always something for everyone. And I'm not talking that you're training to run the London Marathon.
Sure.
I'm talking about even if it's getting out for 5 minutes, go and walk around the block.
Yeah.
If you work in an office all day long, take your lunch break. Or if you can only take part of that, then go out and please get that sunshine.
Well, I know, yeah, because I am a web designer and I work from home.
Yeah.
So I know the days whether I can't or if I feel like I just can't get outside because I've got too much to do,
Yeah.
they're the days you feel the worst. And I've never once regretted going out to do the exercise, but I have very much regretted not doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I deliberately went and bought myself an exercise bike,
Mm,
and it was the best thing I ever did because I just found getting up in the morning, I put 20-minute timer on, and my goal every single day without fail is to get my heart moving,
yeah,
get it pumping, and then go and have a shower and get on with my day. Um, 20 minutes, I think, is achievable. You can start off with five.
mm,
I think the emphasis is it doesn't, nothing has to be difficult. Everything can be done very quickly, very simply, without any pressure whatsoever. And
mm,
we find that people adapt things to suit them, suit their
yeah.
ways. So,
I suppose it's another way, like with the breathing thing, another way of kind of taking control of your routine or your daily life, I suppose, isn't it?
yeah, and touching on routine, which I think is so highly important.
Mm,
Um, Something else that I'm always encouraging people to consider is, people say, I don't have time for this.
yes.
Actually, what we find is you do have time. Sorry.
No excuses.
Sorry. You do have time because you can create your own routine,
Mm,
and you build into your routine what's important to you. So that 20 minutes a day of getting on my exercise bike every morning is built into my routine.
yeah,
Um, so is having my morning coffee that I
hmm,
like to savor.
yeah,
And I might be doing a bit of breathing and some mindfulness while I'm sipping my coffee. Um, so the routine is very important because within that, it's good to allow, um, you know, downtime, and it can be anything from a hobby that you love. It can be, you know, just anything that you want to do, just knowing that you have that flexibility within your routine, but you also know within that you've got work and or children, family life, or you've got your exercise and everything else is covered.
mm,
And then you can constantly be tweaking it. If something doesn't work, tweak it.
yeah,
It's all about just constantly being in control of it. And we find that when we factor all these things in, people tend to deal with anxiety, depression, and even loneliness
mm,
much better because they've got that focus.
mm,
So we just find without that routine, without all these things we've been talking about in place, when there's a loss of focus, um, and a loss of ourselves essentially as well, then that's when the shallow breathing's there. These things can heighten panic attacks. A friend of mine is a paramedic, and he said to me, Stacey, you have no idea the amount of people that ring us thinking they're having a heart attack
right. And it's
when
a
they're
panic
having an
attack.
anxiety
Mm,
panic attack. It is so unbelievably common. Now, I've been trying to get the recent statistics, but it's very hard to get because they don't record them.
right. Interesting.
Interesting, because I'd really like to know. I think there should be a tick box
Yeah.
for the, um, you know,
Oh,
staff.
yeah. But that would seem to be valuable information. That would
Yeah,
be great to know. Yeah.
absolutely. Because if they're great that they're not having a heart attack,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Great
I
news.
don't want you to be in hospital. That's incredible news. Wonderful. However, clearly something has triggered you
Mm,
to land you having to be assessed for a heart attack. Okay, it's a panic attack. So what can we give you instead? What support pack can we give you? What's going to provide that comfort for you so that you can understand what's happened and move on from there and prevent it from happening again in the future?
mm.
So,
Yeah, and to talking about anxiety and things like that, and
Yeah.
something that a lot of people are talking about, and I'm wondering as well, is the impact of things like your phones and social media on that. I wonder what if you have any thoughts on that.
I have lots of thoughts.
Well, that's handy.
um, so I recently, myself personally, have been feeling a bit overwhelmed by social media. And it spurred me on thinking, we talk so much in the media and personally about the effects on children and young people in relation to being on their screens a lot
Yeah.
and social media and protecting them. Um, and it is a lot. And I'm glad we're talking about it because as someone who works in a profession where we are protecting children and young people, believe you me, it is needed that we keep talking about it. But what we don't talk about at all is the impact on adults.
Right.
And this is something that we've been talking about in support groups as well recently. Quite often I'm there leading one of the support groups and I'm always happy to contribute.
Hmm.
It's not a closed book at all. It's just a really nice and lovely, relaxed atmosphere for everyone to chat.
Hmm.
And quite often the things that come up are adults struggling with social media. And there's a few different reasons why. There's so many different platforms to choose from.
Yeah.
Um, and if you're on, for example, Facebook and you're not active, you then find that people start making assumptions. And you just think to yourself, well, actually, just because something doesn't go on social media doesn't mean something's not happening.
Yeah. Well, that's the line, isn't it? If it's not on social media, is it even real?
Well, that's the thing. And I even know, with the charity, I know we could be so much better with our social media, hands up. But we're aware of that and we're working on that for sure. And we've actually just put in a funding bid to bring someone in to take over social media.
Great.
It really is massive. Um, and the other two things that come up in relation to the use of social media with adults is adults finding themselves relying on connection through the screen
Mm.
rather than human interaction, which actually can exacerbate loneliness and lead back to depression, anxiety, and
And is that because they're
the loss of focus.
yeah, and so is that because they're not maintaining their relationships in real life? They're kind of outsourcing it to the phones and the social media.
Yeah. Or also not focusing on as much as they should be on their real life relationships
Mm.
because they're so far down this rabbit hole of maintaining things on social media. Um, and, it's like what I love seeing on social media is this is the real picture or the
Mm.
real behind the scenes
Yes, yeah.
shot in comparison to this is what you see
Yeah, the filtered.
the
Yeah.
filtered absolutely gorgeous sort of there's a lot of pressure there,
Yeah.
but social media is wonderful as well and I love social media, but I just find that there's a lot of pressure on adults to maintain uh you know a life lived face to face and a social media life
Mm.
as well. And I know for a fact that a lot of people struggle to balance the two and struggle with the, you know, thought that how am I supposed to, I don't like everyone knowing my business.
Yeah.
This is the other thing that I find so many people say to me, but I'm such a private person. I really I don't want the world knowing what's going on.
But these are these people saying that to you, but they're still posting. Is that what you're saying?
Um, I think once they come and realize that they don't have to post if they don't want to, They sort of slow down a bit, but they also know that that's maybe their only way of connecting with maybe family members who live far away and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And I guess one of the problems is the way these platforms are kind of gamified, so that a like is like getting a point, and that kind of thing becomes quite addictive, I would think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it definitely feeds something
Mm.
within certain people. Um, I don't know. I guess I personally am someone who can take it or leave it. I
Yeah,
like
so am I.
social media, but I'm very good at putting boundaries in place. And if I'm not posting something on social media, I don't feel bad about it at all because I just think, well, I know what's going on in my in my life, so that's fine. But yeah, it really is. It can be problematic for a lot of
Mm.
people if they're not confidently, um, you know, controlling it. So.
And so, but interestingly, as you've pointed out, equally or maybe more so a problem for adults as opposed to children, which doesn't get talked about quite as much.
Definitely, social media use in adults doesn't get talked about
Mm.
as much as it should be. Excuse me. And it's definitely something that we should be highlighting more because adults feel the pressure to.
So if someone is listening to this and they think that's me, I'm on social media too much and it's getting a bit overwhelming,
Yeah,
what advice have you got for them?
I think what I like about um, well, initially, when social media started, there wasn't as many security settings and restrictions and things like that that you could really put in place to support your individual needs. Whereas now there are, and there's rules and there's regulations and things like that. We've really come a long way. So the first thing I often ask people or suggest to people is perhaps go through, pick a platform, focus on one or two, if that's possible. And if not, and if it's for work um, or something else, then perhaps see if you can get support with managing the
Mm.
platforms so it's not just all on your shoulders. But also don't follow, choose your accounts wisely that you follow, would be my other big suggestion.
That's a good one, I think, because people feel like they need to follow everyone and anyone, but you are in control of at least that bit of it.
Yeah, yeah, it's all about that control, isn't it? And the final thing I would say is going back to your daily routine. Try and stick to times where you are only looking at your social media at certain times of the day. For me, it's I do 10 minutes of morning, I do 20 minutes at lunchtime, and then again 10 minutes, potentially more of an evening. And that's just to make sure that I'm not missing anything as the CEO
Sure.
of It's Okay to Say. Sometimes, as much as we say, please don't message this account, this is not monitored, please email us, we still do get sort of messages coming through.
Hmm.
And occasionally we get, I mean, we've had threats, we've had,
Threats?
people try and contact us for just being really horrible, really, just because, um, it's well, it's a public platform and they can hide behind a
Sure,
computer
yeah.
and that sort of thing. So I think I had one woman message me one time and sort of say some really nasty things, sort of about me because there was a picture of me in the paper with information about the charity. Then she went on to social media and stalked me through there.
Wow.
So, this is the thing, is that it's all about just making sure your security is tight,
Mm.
you being in control of it and making sure that it's working for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't believe someone's threatening a charity over social media. I suppose I shouldn't
Yeah.
be surprised. There's all kinds of people out there, but that seems particularly crazy to me.
Yeah, it is. And it's not nice to be on the receiving end of that either.
Mm.
And I think I would say the fourth thing many adults say that they struggle with on social media is people making horrible comments, the trolling.
Yeah, well,
Um,
that's got to be a big fear of people posting, I think.
yeah, I mean, you've got a celebrity who is doing, amazing major things, and they're getting nasty comments
Yeah.
posted about them from people. And it's jealousy. And
Mm,
it's, people sat behind a screen thinking that, well, no one knows exactly who I am. I can say and do what I want.
It's a way of piggybacking off their fame a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not nice. It's not kind. Be kind. Be
Yeah.
is all I say.
Well, that
Be
is good
kind.
advice. And sort of what was interesting, one of the things you mentioned there about people who may do social media as a job, and there are things that people can maybe ask for help if they're in a position like that. And
Yeah.
I know that it's okay to say to work with different businesses to help implement well-being frameworks. I wondered if you could talk a bit about that.
Yeah. Um, so we have been creating a fantastic corporate program, and that is to work with companies or organizations to help go in and help them build their cements mental health support within the framework. And that can be done in different ways. And every single time we've gone in and done this, it's done differently. So it's never the same anytime. What's lovely is the companies give us a donation to the charity, and that money goes straight to providing support for people. So it's really a wonderful thing to do. Um, that mental health support can be going in and working with maybe the director or the CEO or whoever it is who has been appointed the 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 job of doing it. It's not that they don't want to do it, they want to do it, and everyone wants that support in place.
Mm,
um but on top of your already existing work, and if you think that actually I don't know where to start here. I'm not a professional. I don't know much about mental health, or mental health care and well-being.
mm,
Um, where do I start? So the lovely thing is that's where we come in.
sure.
So for money coming into the charity to support other people, you have total access to us and our services, as well as we go in and we meet with senior people and staff members, and we ask them many, many questions and survey and find out, what is it you're looking for? What is important to you? We ask them to survey their staff members so that we can then go through all that and find out at the end of the day what is going to work for you as your company. And we work with the company's ethos, their values, and we take into consideration their staff's needs. For example, in one company we had two parents where both their children were one was disabled and one had severe learning needs. So the management were really keen to be able to support them, and
Mm,
they had, health insurance packages in place and sure they can access mental health support through that, and that's great. But that was something that they had to actively do themselves. They had to instigate that themselves. So what companies are wanting is to things that are right in front of people that you can access very easily. Um, so it's been a really interesting experience,
mm.
and it's something that we've been sort of designing for the last couple of years, and it's something we're very excited about.
Well, it
So
sounds great. I mean,
yeah.
there must be, so many business owners who want to help but don't know where to start, and that's where you guys
Yep.
can do that work.
Yeah. And as I say, we have a board of professionals from who have so much different experience. We even have, GPs and, you know, medical staff on the board. And this is why I say there's really nothing we can't do. And if we're unsure about something, or, maybe it might feel a bit out of our everyday practice for us, we're never going to say no. We're never going to turn someone away. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to the board and say, may I, let's just hash this out and see. We really are all about solutions. So
Amazing. And so, what kind of issues do these businesses do they tend to have, or maybe it's the staff themselves that have the issues?
Um, well, going back to sort of depression and anxiety, you know, quite often management say we're not going to get our staff members coming in and necessarily admitting to us they're suffering from depression,
Sure.
suffering
Yeah.
from anxiety. Um, but what we can do is put all this information in front of them so that they don't have to. And that is the thing, is we can provide resources galore, which we have at our fingertips. And so the information is just in front of people, and so they don't have to ask for help. So it's done in a very soft and gentle way,
Yeah.
but it's also very reassuring at the same time.
Yeah. Because I could
So
imagine if you are feeling anxious, the last thing you kind of want to do sometimes is have that conversation with your boss.
yeah,
But if if the information's there and you can get it very easily, I can see how that's a much,
yeah,
like I say, much softer way and more appealing way of going about things.
yeah, absolutely. And also the other thing is we can then we can go and do talks. We can do, be part of a meeting that is maybe interjected with 5 minutes of learning something new, like breathing techniques,
Mm,
and or um what is mindfulness, how can we embed it within our day, just short burst things. And I think people really do better with things that are short burst.
mm,
So sitting through, a 3-hour workshop for someone isn't necessarily, if it's not done correctly, is not going to be great. But
mm.
short burst things, especially, when we talk about mental health, a lot of people think, oh, oh,
Not me.
this is, I mean, not me at all. I mean, but there are ways that we can talk about it. There's ways we can deliver it, and it doesn't have to be so, um, oh, is this going to get me down? Is this, and it's because sometimes it can be triggering for people.
Mm,
It triggers something in within someone that maybe doesn't want to talk about something or hasn't, and then it can sort of lead on to other things. But
mm.
the world of mental health care and well-being is very, very exciting these days. It's really good to see it going the way it's going.
In terms of people being more open to discussing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's not taboo anymore.
No,
You
it's
know
true.
that constant raising awareness is working, because it's lifting the stigma, shifting it,
Yeah.
almost sort of turfing it, if you like.
Yeah, well, it is a huge difference to how it used to be. I mean, the amount of people that I know who have been openly say they've been to counselling or a therapist or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like years ago you would never have had that, but now it's pretty normal.
Yeah, yeah, that's because everyone imagines lying down on a couch.
Yeah. In a way, I'd want to do that
So,
though.
how do you feel today? Oh, look, I'm certainly not making jokes about it in any way, but it's just sort of, sometimes we have to bring humor to
Of
things,
course,
because
yeah.
in other words, we all have a mind and we have to look after it.
Mm.
So,
And talking of minds and the work you do with businesses, um, a lot of things that people seem to worry about, and it's come up in this podcast a few times, is
yeah,
imposter syndrome.
yeah,
And I wondered if you have any thoughts on that, or how people can, what they can do if they feel like they're suffering with that.
sure. Imposter syndrome is an interesting one and is a massive topic
Mm,
again within itself. But essentially, it's self sabotage.
interesting.
Yes, I know it is really interesting.
That's
Um,
not going to be what people want to hear.
no, I'm very sorry to anyone listening to this. I am so sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it's not all doom and gloom, trust me, and we can work wonders to improve it. But the reality is that everyone at some point or another, especially in their professional lives, suffers from imposter syndrome, and it can cause procrastination, that with all that that self-doubting, and it all sort of forms like I don't know, like a mold around. Essentially, I need to do this, and I know I've got the skills to do it,
Mm,
but for some reason I can't just do it.
yeah.
Can't put myself into action. um Little bit of a depression in there, bit of anxiety in there. Um, but almost like these things put a mold around the job that you're supposed to be doing, because you've somehow convinced yourself that you can't do it, or you're not capable of doing it, or it's a case of I'm stuck and I don't know why I'm stuck. I can't get past this. I bit like writer's block,
Mm.
really. Um, and there's lots of other things that come along with this. Um, but essentially, what it boils down to is understanding what has triggered you to have these self doubts,
Okay.
and 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 how. And so then, to understand that, we can start nudging the other things as well, to try and start making space and take that mold away, so that we can.
Yeah. So is it like as more of a symptom of a more of a deep rooted issue that's something that's happened in the past, as you were saying, I think.
Potentially, because essentially, something that happens in the past, if it's left unresolved, it can manifest in other ways later on down the track. So I know a lady that she's in her late 40s now. But when she was a little girl, she had a rough childhood, but she hadn't realised that she'd managed to sort of deal with life fairly well,
Mm,
considering what she's been through. But it wasn't until she got into her mid 40s that the rumblings started to happen.
okay.
And so therefore she ended up um struggling, and it was affecting her personal life and her professional life. Now, it doesn't need to be as heavy as that. It can be, maybe past criticisms, and maybe there's something about this piece of work that's sort of triggering that, and that trigger is then causing a physical reaction, and so your mind and body are working together, and you just can't quite put that action in place to start.
Mm,
It happens with, honestly, the most experienced people. They've got years and years of experience, highly qualified, um, and it's just suddenly appeared.
mm.
Or for some people, it can be like this sort of ripple effect, where from time to time it does rear its ugly head.
Yeah. Well, that's
Um,
certainly how I feel about it.
yep,
Whenever it happens to me,
yep,
because like you say, it happens to everybody, right?
yeah,
So I think one of the things that's triggers it for me is the first job I had as a web designer, I ended up getting sacked from.
yeah,
So from then on, when I was ever working for an agency, however, if anything was to go slightly wrong, I'd already be thinking, I'm going down that track again. Now, I didn't get sacked. I overcome all the obstacles that were in the way, and I got through it, and it's fine. But it's always in the back of your mind, I think, that something could go wrong at some point.
Yeah.
But by the same token, every time I've had that feeling, I've come out the other side of it better at at my job for putting myself in that kind of awkward position that triggers those kinds of feelings. So
Yeah.
you talked about it as being self sabotage, and I kind of understand that, I think, because it's there's no reason to assume you can't do it until you have failed at it,
Yeah.
I suppose. And so, but if someone is feeling that way and it is causing them to procrastinate, or it is impacting them, because it can impact some people in quite negative ways and stops them from doing things, is if they're feeling that way in the moment, what is there anything that they can do in that moment to alleviate things any?
Yeah, the first thing is to remove yourself from that wherever you are. Especially if you're sat somewhere and, for example, if you're in an office environment and surrounded by people, take yourself out for a walk and get some fresh air.
Mm.
Um, Focus on the breathing that we spoke about before. Obviously, we've just touched very lightly on one very quick breathing technique, but there are so many out there. Um, and you can find one that works for you. But removing yourself from the situation has a huge impact instantly, um, because you're almost saying to your body, "I need to, I need to go. This is not right. I
Yeah.
need to move." So you've got to remember that what's going to work, what's going to be okay for someone else isn't going to be okay for the person sitting next to them.
Mm.
So it's always okay to just, excuse me for a moment, I'm just popping out. Remove yourself, fresh air, and understand what's happened within that moment that's caused the bumblings of what's made you feel wobbly in that moment. And then kind of try and write down as much as you can. Writing is another physical action that has a profound effect. So we often try and encourage people to journal, and it's for that reason. It has so many beneficial um, reasons to it that affect the whole body. But the main thing is seeking support. If you're someone that finds yourself suffering with long term imposter syndrome, and it's not just a one off
Mm.
thing, then it's something that we really ought to be sort of talking about and sort of understanding why. And there's no, 5 step answer that's going to work with every single person. It's unique to each person.
Yeah.
So you saying before about being fired,
Mm.
it wasn't probably wasn't, excuse me, I can't get my words out. It probably wasn't just the fact that you were fired. It was probably how you were fired. It was probably how you were made to feel.
Yes, that's true. Definitely.
Yeah. And because you were made to feel that way, it wasn't done in a positive manner.
No.
So for me, I would be encouraging you, which you did do anyway, is learn from that. And obviously, it still might affect you, but there are ways of understanding it further so that it's not going to continue taking hold of you as much as it has done
Mm.
previously. So,
Well, that's interesting. That's very interesting. And I think a lot of people will probably identify with a lot of what you've just said there. So hopefully they'll have some ideas. And it seems to be a lot of these things, it's all about trying to take back control and control what you can actually control.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It is really is with everything, learning how to have complete autonomy over things and not being afraid um to say. Sorry, that's corny, I know.
You got to get it in every now and
I've got to
again.
get it in. But not being afraid to just talk to someone, and also not being afraid to say no to people, not being afraid to say that doesn't work for me right now, or even, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to do that. It's okay to put boundaries in place.
Mm.
And we find that once we encourage people to consider these things, you know, once we've understand that person's needs, then they tend to do better because they are deciding what they can and can't do, and understanding that nobody else in the world has the right to make you feel um you know in any negative way.
Mm.
Really it'd be great if we all just had kindness. That would be wonderful.
Oh, that would be the dream.
Ah, sadly, it doesn't work like that. But there's this fantastic saying. It's my favorite saying ever. We can't control the world around us and what's going on around us, but we can always control how we respond.
Well, that is a perfect place, I think, to end the podcast. But
Thank you.
before we do, though, I want to give you the opportunity just to say anything that you want to say about the charity and where they can find you and how they can help. In fact, anything that you want to say, now's a chance.
Of course, we're always looking for help. So whether that's donating skills, or whether that's financial support, or whether that's, coming and volunteering at an event. We've got lots of events coming up next year. We took a bit of a breather this year for events, but next year we've got quite a lot on. We're just working on our website now, as you know.
Great.
And we'll be putting our new financial links up for people to donate, straight through that. And it's, we're registered with the financial regulator. We're, all the our new blog will be on there. It'll all be linked to social media as well. And really, we just the best thing about It's Okay to Say is we've created a really lovely, safe, comfortable space for people to come in and just talk. And we find that from there we see remarkable things.
Great.
So
Amazing.
thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming. It's been fascinating.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.